5 years ago, Congress mandated all maritime cargo headed for the United States be screened for potential threats such as dirty bombs. That deadline to have that screening in place was July of 2012. It's come and gone, and really nothing has been done. It's a huge hole in national security for potential terrorists, but new technology was recently tested that might offer a solution, and it could impact California ports. More than 2.3 million containers enter the Port of Oakland each year. Terrorism experts say cargo containers arriving on ships from foreign ports offer terrorists a Trojan horse for a devastating attack on the United States. And up until now, it has been virtually impossible to detect something like a dirty bomb.
If it arrived in a U.S. port like Oakland or L.A., Long Beach or New York, will we spot it? And the answer right now is the odds aren't that good we would.
Dr. Stephen Flynn is one of the foremost terrorism experts in the United States, and he says ports are a major weak spot in homeland security.
We very much needed a breakthrough technology to get at this problem. It's a huge challenge.
But there is hope in a new technology. Scientists have figured out how to utilize particles from space called muons. They rain down on Earth naturally. We get hit by them every day. They're natural, they're harmless, but they're also key in detecting hidden cargo.
They are extremely reliable, almost 100% reliable, and really there's nothing like it. It's groundbreaking technology, originally developed at a national laboratory, and really is a game changer in terms of security.
A company called Decision Sciences has developed a way to see muons. There are no harmful side effects on people or products. X-rays can be harmful to people and they ruin food. They cannot be used to screen containers carrying anything we eat, but muons can.
It's safe for food, for people. In fact, when we scan trucks with cargo containers, the driver doesn't get out of the vehicle. There's no risk to anybody.
Muon screenings only take a few seconds and they show much better detail than X-ray images.
Very impressively, this new technology, this muon tomography, actually picks up and creates a very interesting image, like an MRI compared to a tooth X-ray.
The need for protection goes beyond seaports. Security experts fear that a device could enter the country through airports, big rigs, or even train tracks. It's a gaping hole in national security that might be filled by a tiny subatomic particle.
This not only detects what has previously been undetectable, but it also casts a wider net. In other words, if the driver is in a truck at a dock and is being screened, currently the driver now has to leave. Well, he could be carrying this stuff with him.
Decision Sciences tested the system for the first time last week in Freeport, Bahamas. Cargo containers are loaded onto trucks, which briefly stop under the scanner. The hope now is it can be installed around the globe.
The system will go into any place, whether it's a port or a railroad crossing or a border crossing, without interrupting the flow of commerce, and it fits readily within the operational concepts that we have in place today. So it does not require major revamping of policy.
The next big issue is the cost. Dr. Flynn thinks every major container port in the world could be fitted with the muon technology for about $1.5 billion total. And most of that cost could be absorbed by the companies doing business in the ports.
We could do this globally, internationally, at every seaport for probably about $10 a container.
Stan Sloane is the CEO of Discovery Sciences. He joins me from Washington, D.C. tonight. Thank you for talking with us.
Thanks. Glad to be with you.
So do our transportation ports and transportation systems need better detection equipment?
Well, I would argue that they do. I think we're at risk from things like nuclear dirty bombs and things which we don't really have adequate prevention against those sorts of things coming into the country today.
Tell me a little bit about this technology. How reliable do you think it is? So if these things were installed and somebody did try to get a dirty bomb in, what's the chances are that we could catch it?
They are extremely reliable, almost 100% reliable, and really there's nothing like it. It's groundbreaking technology, originally developed at a national laboratory, and really is a game changer in terms of security.
And talk a little bit about the safety for things like for people and for food and for the environment, because some of our detection systems, there are complications with that, and that you couldn't use it if a truckload of food came through, for example. But with your technology, explain how that works.
Well, we take advantage of the natural environment. So the system is very simple to understand. Cosmic rays crash into the upper atmosphere. They create particles called pions. Pions decay into another particle called a muon. A muon is very high energy and high mass, and because of that, it travels near the speed of light, and it will go through very dense materials, so lead, steel, concrete, and what we do is we take advantage of that fact that muons penetrate everything, and we use that to determine materials by measuring the deflection of the muon. And because muons are naturally occurring, that we don't add anything, we don't radiate anything, we don't add to the environment. We just use the natural environment. So it's as safe as us sitting here. Muons are going through us as we sit and speak.
What happens, what do they do when they hit something that's radioactive? Somebody gets some dirty bomb material in, and these muons hit that. What do they do?
Well, they go through things, and what we do is we measure the angular deflection of the muon before and after it goes through something. And by measuring that deflection precisely, we can determine what the nature of the material is. So things that are nuclear threats tend to be very high density, what we call high Z, high atomic weight materials, and they have known deflections for the muons. And we measure that, and we can tell what the material is.
Is this something that then we would put at our U.S. ports, or is this something that would be more beneficial to put it at other ports around the world for stuff that's coming to the United States?
Well, I think obviously we would want to stop things from coming into the U.S., so having them at overseas ports is sort of a good defensive strategy, and that prevents things from coming to our shores. Now, it's also, you have to remember that in the U.S. we have seaports, but we also have border crossings, we have railroad crossings that are in land areas, not necessarily seaports. So I think the best strategy would be a deployment both in the U.S. and at the overseas ports.
And as you mentioned then, so you know, we're talking about ports, but obviously this could be something that could be used. Ports, bus stations, train stations, would it be useful to put them in airports?
Airports, yes, any place. The nature of the system is that it can be scaled up or down, so you can have a system that's sized for an airplane. If you wanted to scan a complete airplane, you could have it sized to scan small packages, cars, trucks. It scales very easily.
How expensive is it? So do you need to completely revamp our entire security system, and I'm talking about the infrastructure and the equipment that's there, or is this something that's pretty easily adaptable to what we already have?
The system will go into any place, whether it's a port or a railroad crossing or a border crossing, without interrupting the flow of commerce, and it fits readily within the operational concepts that we have in place today. So it does not require major revamping of policy. Really
expensive? Not so expensive? How would you compare it?
Pretty inexpensive compared to competing technologies. Because the system is completely passive, it is very simple. It doesn't have a lot of complicated electronics. It doesn't generate a lot of, doesn't use a lot of electricity. So it can really be produced at a very low cost compared to other sorts of technologies.
Now, is it really good? You mentioned that it bounces off of stuff. So in this particular case, we're talking about dirty bombs. But could it be used to detect other things that would be useful to know about?
Yes, we're working on other adaptations of other modalities. We detect high density material by measuring muon deflection, but we also detect radiation. So it's a multi-mode system, and having two modes is very effective. We're also looking at another mode which would be used to detect explosives and contraband and other materials, and we expect to have that ready to go in a few months.
And so basically for the operator, for food that might come in, for the environment, this is a totally healthy thing. We're exposed to this anyway every day, whether you have this system in place or not.
That's right. We add nothing. We add no radiation. So it's safe for food, for people. In fact, when we scan trucks with cargo containers, the driver doesn't get out of the vehicle. There's no risk to anybody.
How long till this might be online? And I'm talking about a couple of things. A, till it's ready to go to the commercial market. But B, would there have to be some approval process with the Department of Homeland Security or Defense Department or somebody like that? And so I'm wondering how long it would be ready to go through channels in Congress.
Well, we're ready to put it into commercial service. In fact, our first system is going into the Freeport container port in the Bahamas, and that'll be operational this summer. And we are also talking to, you mentioned Department of Homeland Security, we're talking to them as well as the Department of Energy, who has responsibility for systems that go into overseas ports through what's called the Megaports program. And we are also talking to the Department of Defense. So really working all elements of the government, but the system is ready commercially, and it will be operational. The first system will be operational this summer.
Very good. Stan Sloane from Discovery Sciences, thanks so much for talking to us about this kind of innovative new technology that's out there.
Thank you, Brent. Pleasure to talk to you.